It only has partly dissolved.
Partly dissolved.
Hello, Eckhart.
Hello.
Moin, moin. My question deals with parents. With practice in presence, I felt love for them after many years not feeling love and feeling guilty for that. But I still have huge problems to meet them. When I meet them if they are in the same room, even if I try to be aware of my breath and my inner body, after a while I have huge pain body attacks. And
is that triggered by something they say, or
I can't even say that. Sometimes it's the way I manage to go through the meeting quite fine, and my mother leaves the room and I break down. And yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. German parents can be difficult.
Yes. Okay.
I know. American parents too. So on one level there's already an acceptance of them. On a mental level, the acceptance of who they are, the acceptance of their limitations, they behave the way they behave, is the pain body is still there inside you, of course, and the pain body reacts. It may also be that the mental level, the mental acceptance is not yet complete either. To see that they act the way they act, speak the way they speak, not because of who they are, but because of their past conditioning, which is their mental emotional conditioning is speaking through them. They can't help that. Mm-hmm. If there's not enough presence, everybody is controlled by their mental emotional conditioning. They can't help it. They are afflicted by that disease, which is identification with unconscious conditioning. I'm not the only one who calls that disease. Even in the ancient teachings of Zen, they sometimes call it the disease of the mind. And there are some Zen teachers who have said they are here to cure that mental illness. They've said that's what Zen is about, it's curing that mental illness. So you need to, on the mental level, as you sit with them, you need to know that continuously, that what you are observing is not who they are. Mm-hmm. You're observing a form of mental conditioning. Underneath that, there is the being, and you may sometimes get a glimpse of it. My mother was very much identified also with her mind, and occasionally I looked into her eyes and suddenly there was a light shining through when she stopped talking for a little while. In other words, the mind catching a breath after talking for 10 minutes incessantly. And then for a moment I could say, there's their being, her being was shining through. And I have one or two photos where her being shines through. Mm-hmm. And then of course it gets obscured again. And then you get the suspicions, the complaints, the accusations, all the stuff associated with unconscious thinking. So on the mental level, you need to know that, be present enough so that you don't forget that what you're observing is not who they are, but you're observing the past in them, the conditioning. And then comes the emotions that you feel, because there's your past, the living past in you, from your childhood, all the things they did or failed to do because they couldn't help it. There wasn't enough presence to change it. So that's something for you to find acceptance. As you accept them, you accept what you feel at that moment. Whether you can even label it, we don't know. Is it sadness? Is it anger? Is it heaviness, or a mixture of all of that? A feeling of wanting to run away, a contraction, whatever it is, that's all there. You don't need to even analyze it. You just need to feel the entire energy field of that, and it doesn't feel pleasant. And it's the past in you. So there you're observing the past in them, acting out, and you experience the past in you. And so what do you do with two pasts? You have the past out there and the past in here. Only presence can dissolve the past. So you need to access the power of presence in yourself. And how do you do that? A quick way in a situation like this is the acceptance of whatever arises inside or outside at this moment. You accept this is what you feel, this is what they do or say. There's the acceptance of the inner and the outer. You say, because it is already happening, why you have to accept or you suffer. In a way, if you don't accept, you suffer more. If you don't want to feel what you feel, that's more suffering because you're resisting. Acceptance does something that I could describe as, let's say, here's the emotional field and it doesn't feel good. And acceptance means just you say, okay, that is, I can feel that. I'm verbalizing. Acceptance doesn't even require, after a little while, you don't need words anymore. You can just see what is, be with it. And at that moment, a little bit of space opens up around that emotion. A little bit of space. That space comes from your acceptance. The acceptance gives it space. And that's already a tiny bit of freedom. You've given it a little bit of space inside yourself when you say, yes, this is what is. And that's a beauty. You've given both them space externally to be, and you've given yourself space internally. And then, as you notice that actually that feels already a little bit better than before, because there's space around the emotion. And then you go into it more deeply and you accept even more. You continue to accept, and that space grows a little bit around it. And then you encounter the strange phenomenon of an emotion that is not pleasant existing in a spacious field, so to speak, that's around it. And then you realize that who you are is you are that field. And you can allow the emotion to be in that field, and you can allow your parents to be there and say what they say and do what they do. They're repeating the past. Space comes in. So acceptance brings space, and space is the transcendence of conditioning. Space is the transcendence of the past, the transcendence of the personality and the person, and it's freedom, space. That's the practice. And so the best place to practice is with your parents. There are many other places where you can practice, but the ultimate mastery you will achieve when you can practice with your parents. That's the graduation. You graduate. Okay. It's the PhD in presence. With don't jump into it too much. If you say, okay, I'm going to spend a week with our parents now, it's too much. Too much. You should give yourself short time periods at first. Say, I'm going to come for coffee and cake. That's what they like to do. At least my mother did. I'll come for coffee and cake and I'll stay for an hour, or if you can. I don't know how that works. practically, and then you practice, you give yourself 1 hour to practice. So that's it. And you know it's only an hour, I have to be present for an hour. And it's your spiritual practice. So as you know, I've written the quote in a book. Ram Dass said, if you think you're so enlightened, spend 2 weeks with your parents. 2 weeks. The ultimate test. So, happy practice. Thank you. The true inner peace is a deep sense of aliveness, to feel fulfilled, and it's inseparable from it's a kind of joy, not necessarily the ecstatic joy. You don't go through life saying, wow. Well, some people try it, but you can't sustain that. But no, a peaceful and alive energy field in the background, that's inner peace. That's the most precious thing in your life. Far more important than where you are or what's happening around you. And it's given up because of mental habits. You lose it so often. So once you're aware of that, then you can observe the mechanism how you lose that, how quickly it can happen. And when you're really alert, you can see that what's the mechanism behind it? And the mechanism behind it is, of course, a thought that arises that says something about this shouldn't be happening. It complains or whatever it does. The thought, but you don't know it's just a thought. To you, it is inseparable from the situation. So if you don't know that the thought you have about a situation is inseparable from the situation, that's unconsciousness, because then you say, it's a dreadful day because it's raining. You have mixed up a judgment with the external condition. It's a dreadful day. Not realizing that the dreadful is your mental judgment and the day is as it is. Or you say standing in line here for so long is dreadful. No, you've mixed up two things, a judgment and the situation. But if you disentangle them and then you see, here is what is, and here's what my mind is saying about it. And then suddenly you see that by believing totally in every judgment that arises, you immediately lose your peace. You become dependent on external conditions for your happiness. So once you see that, then you can actually no longer believe in the judgment, or you can even relinquish it. And that's when that comes, when you realize your power to do that for the first time in situations where usually you would have complained or become irritated or angry, and suddenly you find, oh, I'm not complaining anymore, I'm not irritated. Or the thought comes and you say, okay, this is the thought and here's what is. I'll just stay with what is, because all the thought does is it adds suffering. The situation might be physical discomfort, but it's not suffering. It is as it is. That's an enormous liberation when you can be in a place that before your mind would have called, I don't want to be here. Well, but you are here. Oh. And then you're just here without any judgment, and suddenly it's okay. That's the beginning of freedom from externals. And that's liberation. And that's continuous practice with all the little things that happen throughout your day. You practice in that way, so that gradually you go into situations without mental judgments. And you still know what you need to do. The mind says, no, I will never do anything anymore then. You still know what you need to do, and action, you can take action, but not based on condemnation and negative energy. So to become free of externals is an essential part, of course, of spiritual awakening. We're leaving aside the extreme situations. It gets relatively rare. Of course, that also is extremely useful to look at, but let's just work with normal daily life. People. The most challenging thing in your spiritual awakening is other people. Because other people, most of people are identified with their mind, and they can easily pull you into identification with your mind. And the question is whether you are able to accept the other human as he or she is in this moment. As you accept a place where you are, as you accept a situation you are in, without looking to your mind to tell you something about that situation. Is this something to be practiced, tried out in your life continuously? And more, what arises then is a consciousness that is not conceptual, an intelligence that is not conceptual, that then begins to operate also. It's not just passive, it begins to operate in your life. It takes the place of what was operating before, which is the mind-made, thought-based sense of identity with its conditioning and reactivity, which asks, what's the next thing I can react to? It's looking, many human minds or egoic minds are looking for the next thing to react to. They don't know it, of course. And the slightest thing you say or do, and they go, you should know better, you shouldn't be saying that. So there's the usual thing that runs your life, the egoic self consisting of usual thought patterns, gradually is replaced by a deeper intelligence that is not conceptual and non-judgmental, and it comes up and it looks at the world without imposing judgments on it. And at that moment, whenever that happens, you are free of dependency on external conditions. Because you're only dependent for your inner state. You're only dependent on external conditions as long as you believe in your thoughts about the external conditions. External conditions including places, situations, people. So in some ancient traditions, people in a very extreme way, they saw the truth of this and they practiced, they said, okay, I'm going to become a mendicant, I'm going to give up dependency on anything, and I will just go from place to place with nothing, give up all dependency on external conditions as a spiritual practice. This is not practical in the West. Almost impossible to do in the West. The whole cultural background is not there for that. We have to do it in some other way. If you want to be a mendicant, you can still do it in India. Besides, of course, many places are too cold in the West to be a homeless wanderer. I experienced homelessness for a while, and it was a beautiful experience. It could have been terrible if my mind still had some judgments about it. But as already the mind had given up complaining and calling any situation bad, or calling my life useless, or having some kind of opinion about who I am, without that opinion, without all these mind structures, this moment was simply as it is, as it always is. And that it is wonderful then to be able to appreciate the aliveness of this moment, no matter what form it takes. This is the practice. Now you still have to work with your mind and be vigilant so that you can be there when your mind brings up thoughts. Don't believe in the judgments of your mind. Don't rely on the judgments of your mind. Be the deeper consciousness, the unconditioned consciousness behind the mind. Is the essence, let's go there slowly. What is the essence of who you are? What is the essence of the life that you are? I'm not saying that you should not try to improve the conditions of your life, but more importantly is to realize that you do not have a life, because that's, people say, my life. Now, if you look at the structure of that sentence, my life, there's a duality there. Because if you say my life, that implies that you have it, it's mine. So it implies two, duality. If you say my life, there's you and the life that you have. It belongs to me, it's mine. So this thought, this language creates a duality in your mind. Call it my life. That's interesting. So there's me, and I have a life, and then the fear comes in, if I have a life, I might lose it. And of course, then you visit the cemetery and you say, yes, they all once had their life and they lost it. They lost their life. And that's going to happen to me too. Not realizing you are trapped in certain mental formations that create an illusory identity and actually create delusion. You don't have a life because there is not a duality. Without life, there's no you. So you can't have it. You are one with life. There isn't you and life. You are life. You don't have it. Now, if you are it, you can't lose it. Because you are it. But of course, we'll have to see more deeply what we mean when I say you are life. But let's for a moment stay with that. You are life. You don't have a life. You are. So you can say it for yourself in your mind. I don't have a life. I am life. This is the end of duality. You realize there's a oneness of you and life. And when I say life, we can use another word. The essence of being alive. What is the essence? let's go there slowly. What is the essence of who you are? What is the essence of the life that you are? Okay, now normal humans, which means unawakened humans, say, well, the essence of my life is my, whatever they identify with in there. It's my possessions, what I have, what I know, my body, all those things that I identify with. That's the essence of who I am, is whatever I derive my identity from. It could be the physical body, or it could be my car, or my house, or my work, my function in society, or it could be friends that I have, things that I have attained. It could also be, these things are all in the mind also. Because when you let's say your sense of identity, which is you compare yourself to others all the time. There's this you do when you're in your mind. You compare yourself to others. Let's say your body looks better than other people's body for a while. This too will pass. But for a while, you can get in there, and then you become, this is my body. That also is a mental formation. So it's not so much you identify with the body, you identify the thought of my body. That's what you identify. You don't identify with your Ferrari, if you have one. It's the thought of my car, which makes you superior to others who only have a little car. Or your body makes you superior to others who have a puny and weak body. So you can display, for a few years, you display your body on the beach and feel good about yourself. And after a while, a day comes when you look in the mirror and say, what happened? There's something wrong with the mirror. In the past, the mirrors that people made were so much better than the mirrors now. So for a while you identify with this or that. That is quite normal. And so when I ask what is the essence of who you are, most people would tell you, well, this is who I am, this is what my identity is derived from this, and this bundle of things is who I am. It's not always positive, because I was just talking about having a body that looks better than other people's body. You could have a body that looks worse than other people's body. And so that serves too. You could either you look for something else that gives you an identity, like actually you're more intelligent than all these stupid beach bums. So you can say, look at these people, but you have so much more knowledge and intelligence, and you can look down on them. Or you can be more spiritual. So I can't afford a Ferrari, I'm on my bicycle, and you say, look at this materialistic person in the Ferrari. So you can still, or if that doesn't work, you can see how unfairly treated by life you have been, and how so much more miserable you are than most people. And you've really been a victim of circumstances. You've been a victim of your birth and of your parents did a dreadful job with you. Maybe if their parents had been more conscious, things could have worked out, but they weren't. So, but that also gives you a strong conceptual identity. So if you can't have a positive one, the negative ones can be just as strong, if not stronger. You can have a huge victim identity. It's a favorite thing. Sometimes in the collective, certain egoic things become fashionable for a while. Nowadays, the victim identity for certain groups of people are very fashionable, so people can feel, oh yes, we have all been victimized by those people, and of course there's some truth in it, in some cases. But that doesn't, but to derive an identity is a delusion. To derive a sense of identity from that is a huge delusion. That is not who you are. That's all my life, that's all. So if you are not all those things, so when I ask, who are you? If I ask that question, don't go, let's do this for a moment, don't go into the past. Can you feel or sense who you are without reference to the past in you? You don't even need to remember your name right now. What for? You don't really remember your email address or your phone number or what happened to you 10 years ago. Don't need to remember that. Can you still get a sense without reference to your personal history? Can you get a sense of beingness or presence? There's no past in that at all. But what is that? You can't really describe it. All you know is that you are. I am. You can sense the underlying beingness or presence of you. But to really sense it, what needs to happen is that for a moment, the stream of thinking needs to subside. And it may be happening for many of you at this very moment. The stream of thinking that is normal for most people, that never stops except when they fall asleep, the stream of thinking for a moment subsides. And when I asked you whether you can sense yourself without reference to your personal history, what I was really talking about, what I was really asking was, can you get a sense of your presence without thought? And there's enormous revelation here. This question, who am I, does not have a real truthful answer on a conceptual level. It's not in thoughts or words. The true answer to who am I has no thought in it. It is a sense of presence or beingness. And you can only sense that if even it's only a moment. So the stream of thinking subsides, and what happens is you are completely present without your mind saying anything. You can perceive everything, you can see, you can hear, you're fully there, and your mind is still. Still does not mean that you've gone to sleep. It's the opposite. You're actually more alert in that stillness than you would be if you were identified with this continuous stream of thinking. That's the stillness, the inherent stillness that actually every human has that. You don't need to work hard to attain stillness or think that if I follow the right course of action, it might take me 10 years and then I'll be able to have a still mind. No, it's already there. And if you're not totally miserable and unhappy every moment of your life, that means, without perhaps you knowing it, anybody who is not extremely miserable all the time has a little bit of access, without even knowing it, to that stillness within. They don't know it. All they know is from time to time they feel a little bit good. They feel, they don't know, for 3 seconds they stopped thinking. They might have some other explanation of why in that moment they felt good. Maybe they were looking at a dog, and in that moment, because the dog wasn't thinking anything about them, because the dog doesn't think, the dog is conscious but not conceptual thinking, the dog does not have an opinion about you. And so when you were petting the dog, perhaps you suddenly felt good about petting the dog. Why? Because for a moment the dog freed you of the judgmental conceptual mind that otherwise would be very active if you were petting a human. It would say something. Of course you can't do that because people would think you're insane. You can't go up to a human, may I pet you? That would be nice if they did that to each other, but the humans have judgments about you. So whenever you go to a human, you know that he has certain thoughts about you. So the other human cannot free you from your thoughts. But the dog or the cat can, for a short moment, free you from your thoughts. And in that moment, it feels good. That's why people love their pets so deeply. There's a reason, a deeper reason why they love, because the pet frees them a little bit from their minds. And there are moments when you interact with your animal that you can experience brief moments of thoughtless awareness. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but it's enough to keep you going. It's enough so that your life doesn't become totally miserable. And then you might have other moments. You might have moments when you engage in some physical activity. You swim or you climb a mountain, and then there are moments that your total presence is required by the activity so that there's not enough left for thinking. And again, you feel intensely alive. Oh, that was so good. Why was it so good? Well, I love it. It's just so good. I don't know why it's good. Well, it's good because it freed you for a moment from the incessant stream of thinking, and there was some degree of awareness or presence arising, but you didn't even know that. Partners evolve sometimes at different speed, the evolution of consciousness, and some may not evolve for a while at all. So it's possible that suddenly the awakened consciousness comes into you, and your partner remains where he or she is, and you go into enormous presence and aliveness and newness, and you still see he or she is still no change. And then wait a little and see, it is quite possible that your state transmits itself if there's even the slightest degree of readiness in the other. The fact that you do not strengthen his or her mind anymore by opposing his or her mind, the vital thing, don't oppose the mind. Can express your viewpoint without opposition. Something may happen, an opening may happen, or it is possible that you may have to separate, and it may be that the other partner will leave you because it is no longer satisfying to live with you without the drama. The pain body, of course, many of you know about the pain body, and hopefully not only know about the pain body, but have direct knowledge, immediate knowledge of your own pain body. The pain body, of course, is the favorite place for the pain body, which is the old accumulated pain, which is an energetic, almost an entity that lives in you. that lives on emotional suffering. It loves its vibrational frequency. It thrives on close relationships. That's where it gets its food, most of its food. There isn't much you can do with, if your pain body needs food, it can't do much when you go to the supermarket and only see the cashier for half a minute or 1 minute. Even there it could happen. I've been standing here for 10 minutes and you've been talking to this customer instead of serving me. But favorite place for pain bodies to renew themselves are families and intimate relationships. That's their place. And so you will know your partner has a pain body, which occasionally takes them over and makes them say and do things that one could say they're completely out of character. Well, yes, it's unconscious. It comes as a surprise when you start living with a person and you've experienced their pain body after perhaps 2 or 3 weeks for the first time. And that used to be the big surprise when people got married. Nowadays, often people live together for a while before they get married, so they already know that the other has a pain body. It's good. And you haven't committed yourself yet. You can still get out. But what a dreadful thing when you marry somebody, start living with that person, and 2 or 3 weeks after the honeymoon, a totally different person is suddenly there. A person who's in a deeply negative energy field, says hurtful things, misinterprets what you do. And you say, who did I marry? And you think this must be the real person. Maybe I married, this was all a disguise. The real person is coming out now. That's of course not the case. It's not the real person, it's the pain body. And where's yours? Oh. Your partner's pain body wants yours, wants your emotional reaction. Pain body is an emotional aspect of ego. It's part of the egoic consciousness. Pain body needs to be recognized in yourself and the other as it arises. It's not usually there all the time. That would be dreadful, but it comes periodically. And then you go back to normal for a while, and then it comes back. And so you need to recognize it, be there as the space for it, be the presence in the other and in yourself. Perhaps the most destructive thing in relationships is the pain body that people carry around with them, that takes them over and makes them, even sometimes people who are already awakening, they still periodically get taken over by their pain body and completely lose consciousness, are then completely identified with that energy field. It uses their mind. It rises up when the pain body needs to renew itself, feed on somebody else's reaction. It moves into your mind, and every thought you think is the thought of the pain body. It completely, the emotional energy field takes possession of your mind, which is probably, if you're not conscious, is probably problematic enough as it is, even without the pain body. But then the pain body rises into your mind, and then if you observe it in your partner, because if it happens to you, you can't observe it anymore. The presence is lost. But you can observe it in another more easily. Every word they say to you is the pain body speaking through them, as if an entity, and in a way it is like that, had taken possession of them and is now using their mind and speaking through their mind. You need to know that so that you do not react as if that were who they are. So that is where a degree of compassion comes in, when you recognize that they are being possessed at that moment by this entity called pain body. That helps to know it. But this entity is very cunning and knows exactly how to get an emotional reaction from you. It will accuse you, blame you, it knows your weakest points, and it will go in there and press all the right buttons until you finally go, oh, oh, and your own pain body has awakened, and you're in the grip of it, and you start shouting, and whatever form the pain body takes. Or you may be present enough and so that you don't get taken over by your own pain body. But even being in the grip of the pain body, if you're awakening, if the new consciousness is arising, there is a good chance that at the back there is still an observing presence. And you are able to say to your partner, I think my pain body has just come up. I can feel it. There it is. And if your partner's pain body has not come up yet, then he or she can help you to stay present with it. You can address it, see, it happened just at this moment when you said that, or that happened, that, and now I can feel it. Okay, let's stay with it. You may also point out to your partner that the pain body has come up when you observe it, and if you're lucky, there's still enough awareness there to recognize it. But the pain body is very cunning. It may even be that your own pain body is coming up and you're accusing your partner that their pain body is there. Whoa, very cunning. And of course, the interesting thing is if somebody says to you, there's your pain body, if there's a reaction, then he or she was right. What do you mean, my pain body? If there is an open looking, you say, that's my pain body? Okay, well, okay, let me just feel into this. Then probably wasn't. My pain body? Well, that's strange. Didn't feel like a pain body, but maybe. But that is the look that also you can practice. It is the look that where you're not a person, you're just a presence. I've been looking at this folder. It has questions in it. People submit lots of questions. So I will answer perhaps a few. And from tomorrow, we are open, or I am open to receiving questions from you that arise spontaneously, or that you've kept at the back of your mind for a long time, wanting to ask, and it still hasn't dissolved. It's beautiful, by the way, if a question dissolves that you've had, which means, well, you could still ask it, but it's no longer of vital importance. Sometime in the 1930s, a British writer went to India. I believe his name was Paul Brunton. He went to India to visit the living masters and interview them and then write a book about them. And he did. And one of the masters he visited was Ramana Maharshi, at the time not known in the West at all, and only to a limited extent in India. And so when he went in to see Ramana Maharshi with his list, a long list of questions for his book, and Ramana Maharshi just looked at him. There are some photos around with Ramana Maharshi looking at you, especially one that's very beautiful. And so he just looks. You can feel when he looks, even on that photo, he's not thinking whatsoever. There's no thought whatsoever in his mind. There's just spaciousness. But it's not a look of a zombie. It's presence, spacious presence. Well, you can have that now. There's nobody there looking. There's just consciousness. Nobody in particular, just consciousness. So it's not a person looking, and that's the energy transmission also happens in that way. It cannot happen when a person is looking at you, because that means the looking happens through the veil of conditioning. That is the person, mental, emotional conditioning. But here the looking comes straight from the depths of consciousness, unconditioned consciousness. So it's just the light looking. So Paul Brunton came to see into Ramana Maharshi's room, and Ramana Maharshi just looked at him. And suddenly Paul Brunton had no longer any desire to ask his questions. And they sat in silence together for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I don't remember. And then Paul Brunton thanked him and left the room. That was the interview. This happened again a few years later. The famous British author Somerset Maugham visited India, and he had probably read Paul Brunton's book that in the meantime had been published, where he wrote very favorably about Ramana Maharshi, who was the one teacher that impressed him most. So Somerset Maugham came to experience the presence of this master, probably to write about him, because whatever Somerset Maugham did and whoever he met, he would write about them later. He continuously was making notes about people. And just before Ramana Maharshi came into his room, it was so hot there, he fainted. And not Ramana Maharshi, Somerset Maugham fainted. They carried him into a room to put him on a bed there to regain consciousness. And then they told Ramana Maharshi, there's a famous British author who came to see you, but he fainted. And Ramana Maharshi said, okay, I'll go to where he is. And when Somerset Maugham opened his eyes, there was Ramana Maharshi sitting, looking at him. And again, no words were spoken, except, if I remember correctly, they looked at each other, and then Ramana Maharshi said something like, silence is the best speech. And that was about it. That was the meeting of the famous British author with the spiritual master. And, of course, yes, he did write a book, and Ramana Maharshi appears as a character in that book, and although he doesn't, of course, under a different name as a master, and if you're interested, the book is called The Razor's Edge, a novel. But that is the look that also you can practice. It is the look that where you're not a person, you're just a presence. And when you look at a tree or the sky or a flower or another person, if that's not too difficult, if you look at them and there's no mind activity, just an underlying presence as the backdrop, so to speak, to your sense perception, then at that moment, you're not a person looking at the world, you are consciousness looking ultimately at itself, its own creations, because everything is consciousness that has taken a particular form, a temporary form. There's only the one underlying all forms. And in that looking, there's not only the absence of the person, there is also the presence of presence. And that means whatever you are looking at, you sense something that is deeper than the surface appearance of that thing that you are looking at. In the case of a plant or a flower, yes, there is the surface beauty of the flower or the plant, but there is also something that the eye cannot see. There is a beautiful quote that is, I believe, from a book called, is it The Little Prince? Saint-Exupéry, is that the author? And there's a quote that says, what is essential is invisible to the eye. But what is essential is invisible to the eye. This eye. It does not only refer to the visual sense, it also refers to all the other senses. So what is essential, the essence of things, of human beings, of yourself, of a tree, of a dog, the essence of the thing is you cannot see or perceive with the senses. So if you only perceive through the conditioned mind as the person, then all you ever see or perceive with the other senses is the surface, never the essence of that life form. So what is essential is invisible to the eye. How can you become aware of that which is beyond the sense perception, that the deeper dimension of things, which for many humans alive now does not exist, and the majority of scientists would probably, there are maybe some exceptions, but Einstein was an exception, but the majority of scientists would probably deny that there is such a thing as a deeper dimension to things. But eventually they will come around. If not this generation, when this generation is dead, the next one will come around. So then you look at something, at a tree, a flower, and that presence of presence through which you're looking recognizes something of itself in that which you're looking at, and that is the dimension of depth. And that is where you feel connected, or a better word, where you feel that sense of oneness with that which you are looking at. No longer the separation. When you're looking through the conditioned mind as a person, there's always a sense of separateness. Whatever you're looking at is the other. There's always a sense of otherness. And that sense of otherness is the absence of love in the deepest sense. You cannot love the other in that state of consciousness. You can try, or you might convince yourself for a while that it's working, but it won't last. So, to sense something deeper that is within, that is the essence of that life form, that adds a depth to all your perceptions. It's no longer a surface reality. Everything has a depth to it, and that depth, in traditional spirituality, is called sacredness.